Hello, this is Pastor John from Flint Hill, and I'm so excited that you've joined us for Grounded. Over the next few minutes, we're going to bring you the truth of the gospel, along with ways to help you grow to be more like Christ. I hope this touches your life in a way that is groundbreaking for you. If you never had a relationship with Jesus, this may be the day that you start one. Or if you're not as close to Jesus as you would like to be, I pray this may be the day you begin drawing closer. And now, here's Grounded. And welcome to Grounded. We have a wonderful special guest today. Her name is Jennifer Bennett. She is a missionary from Africa and serves, I believe, in Kenya. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Fantastic. And you are good friends with some of my good friends, Billy Wayne and Jenny Fuller.
Yes.
You know them well?
I've met them. Had already left Kenya when I joined, but then I've connected with them through their really good friend, Robin Moore, who was my colleague
Yes.
in Kenya until she retired.
I had Robin on several weeks ago, and we talked about a bunch of stuff. So we're going to talk about some of your missionary work and the things that you do over in Africa and how you have seen God at work over there. But I want to start out with you, Jennifer, and tell me a little bit about your call to the ministry. I want to hear how you came to know Jesus and what prompted you to go into Africa.
Okay. Well, I was very blessed. I was born in a Christian home, and I felt like I think I was in church from the time I was a tiny baby, even dedicated at just a few weeks old. And I look back and really appreciate that legacy of faith through my parents, my grandparents, my extended family. I was able to go to church camp as a child. I was born in Florida, and we moved to Toccoa, Georgia, Northeast Georgia, when I was 3. And so I pretty much grew up in Georgia and attended church camp there every summer from the time I think I was like 7 or 8 all the way up until I went into high school. And at one of the church camps when I was in middle school, I just felt that God was pressing on to do a call for missions. I accepted Christ at an early age. I think I was about 5 or 6, and just really realized about asking Jesus into my heart. And at that church camp, I just felt like I wanted to become a missionary and overseas. My grandmother was a nurse, my aunt is a nurse. And so I'd always wanted to do nursing and missions.
You know, Jennifer, we were just talking last night in our small group meeting about the power of camps and how so many people have heard the call to ministry through a youth camp. And what's kind of scary is how we're getting away from youth camps now. And you don't see as many youth camps and you don't see as many kids going. And I think that's really going to have a devastating effect on our missionaries and on our pastors and on our lay leaders and people like that who go to these church camps and they have this experience with God and then they answer some sort of call.
Yeah, it's sad that we're moving kind of that way. It's just because I know it was very marking in my life,
Mine
being at
too.
camp.
Mine too. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. And then, so I got into nursing school, and after I got
Where
out
did
of
you
nursing
go?
s to the University of North Georgia.
Okay.
When I went, it was North Georgia College and State University, but now University of North Georgia in Dahlonega, Georgia. And so I went there. I did ROTC actually for the first few years and thought about
Did you?
commissioning into the Army, and then decided, no, that wasn't gonna be the best move for me. And so I got out and I worked at the hospital in Toccoa. It's actually located right on the campus of Toccoa Falls College at the very beginning, just before you get into the campus. I worked at Stevens County Hospital. I did 2 years on a med surge floor, and then I moved into the intensive care unit, which was
Mm,
my passion. I love the ICU. And it's
mhm.
kind of felt like I almost got away from my calling that was as a child, because I was working, traveling, and just living, just life, and
Living the
thought,
dream.
that yeah, and I thought, that calling must have been just as a child thing, it wasn't as an adult, and it kind of became full circle. Just before I turned 30, my sister and her husband started attending a church just outside of Atlanta in North Georgia called 12 Stone, and I liked the church. It was bigger. Living in Toccoa, it's a smaller town, I'm single, not a lot of opportunity to meet people, and so I thought, "You know what? I wanna meet people where I should in church." And so I thought, well, at least if I go to a bigger church, I'll increase my chances. And I thought God is up there probably just laughing, "Ha, ha, ha, I'll show you." So I started going. I mean, it was an hour drive because it was near, Buford, Georgia. There now there's multiple campuses, but that was their single, main campus then. And so I would drive down an hour to go to church, and then we'd go to dinner or go out to eat with my sister and her family. And so I started going to 12 Stone and just God still really started working on me. The African Children's Choir had come to the church, and they're all orphans from HIV and AIDS.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember sitting in church, my family, I'm the oldest, still not married, no children. And, my siblings have kids and just wondering, would I ever have children? And it was like during that service, I felt the Holy Spirit just whispered, like, these will be your children. I
Wow.
started bawling. I just thought God was telling me I would never have kids. I would have to adopt one from Africa, never knowing he had something else in mind. And
Right.
so that was like a year before that. And so the next year, it was 2007. I was at church one day and I see about the Nigeria missions trip to Lagos, Nigeria, and it happened to fall over my 30th birthday. And I love to
Well,
travel. I
God was
had
at
got,
work, wasn't he?
I'm sorry?
God was certainly at work, wasn't he?
I know because I never would have looked at that trip had it not been over my birthday because I am very hot natured and Africa's hot. And,
Africa's
I
hot.
just, but, and I'd gotten in some credit card debt. So I was really trying, and I had stopped, and I knew I was raised in church. I knew what to do about honoring God in my finances. And I had stopped doing that and just had kind of messed up. So I had, I was supposed to have gone to Ireland with some friends, but I had to back out, tell them I couldn't do that because of this credit card debt. I even got into a small group, a Crown Financial class. So I started really working on paying off my debt and everything, but I was still bummed because I love to go on fun places on my birthday. I've been blessed to be in some pretty amazing places. And so when that missions trip flashed up, I mean, this was in June and my birthday's in September. And I remember thinking, wow, wouldn't that be cool to be in Africa on my 30th birthday? And I go, God is just up there laughing. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would be real cool, Jennifer.
So I call about the trip and it was a dental trip. And I was like, but I'm an ICU nurse. They're like, oh, we'd love to have a nurse go with us. And so they told me the trip was like $2,700. And I remember, praying about it and just thinking about it. And I was just like, I just don't know if that's going to be possible. I'm trying to get out of debt. And so I've done something I'd never done before. I prayed specifically. I said, because then it became more about wanting to do what God wanted me to do, not just going to Africa for my birthday. If I'm really gonna invest this, I wanted it to be really truly of God and not just a desire I had to travel and be somewhere. And so I prayed and I said, "Okay, God, if you really want me on this trip, you have to let my dad be positive about the trip." He'd been harping on me for years to get rid of credit cards, to pay off my debt. And so I knew of anybody, not that he wouldn't be supportive, but he would be the most cautious about
Realistic.
it.
Yeah,
Realistic, exactly. And he was a
yeah.
professor, and so I'll never forget, I call him up and I'm telling him all about the trip, and he just paused at the end and he just said, "Okay, I'll pray with you about it." And that's not usually my dad. Usually he'll be like, "Oh, I think that's great, Jenny," or, you know, or "Have you considered this? The timing might not be right on this." He would normally respond, but for him just to pause and just said he would pray, I was like, I didn't get my answer. And he said he hung up the phone later and he said, "Oh man, what's she getting herself into now?" Because I've done up until that, I had bred like champion cocker spaniel dogs. I had taken ballroom dancing. As a single girl, I had more disposable income. And so a few days later, it was Father's Day. So I call him to wish him happy Father's Day. And he said, "Jenny, I was sitting in church today." And he said, the pastor asked any of the fathers having trouble with their children to come up for prayer. And he said, "I felt like the Holy Spirit just pressed on me that I had a daughter that wanted to go on a missions trip. And I needed to support you in this." So he said, "You have our prayer and financial support." Well, I started
Wow.
crying because I was like, I didn't tell anybody about what I had prayed. And so I told him, I said, "Well, I told dad, I said, oh, I told God, I said, if he really wanted me on this trip, that you had to be the one to be positive and encourage, not that he wouldn't be encouraging, but he had to be positive about it." And so I joined the team. I was the youngest on the team and got the money raised all through my family and friends. And so in September, off I went to Lagos, Nigeria to the West Africa Theological Seminary for 10 days on a dental trip. And I had never really liked to pray out loud before. I was with very like our pastor who led the trip was doing their missions and evangelism conference. And so I remember like one night in our debriefing time, everybody had to pray for the person next to him, and I'm sitting next to my pastor, and I felt very inadequate because, here I have all these people who've been, just pillars of the faith and everything, and I'm like, "I have to pray for them. How am I ever gonna" I look back now and just laugh because I get called on to pray all the time now,
That you
and that
do.
was it was just really amazing that week getting to work with the students of the seminary and also the local community, and learned a lot about dentistry. I got to help, but a lot of times I was most comfortable being the dental assistant and not as comfortable being the person sitting in the chair praying with them. But many times I had God pull me out of my comfort zone to do that, and I look back now and just look how God did all that. And then the coolest thing is I didn't end up telling anybody that it was my birthday while we were there, but it just so happens the team leaders, the dentist and his wife, they were my sister and brother-in-law's small group leaders, so they had sent stuff, and they had a cake for me and honored us, and but what was cool is on that day, it was the last day of the missions and evangelism conference that our pastor was preaching, and so they invited us all in to kinda thank us for the week, to present us with, like, the African dress that they give all the visitors that come. And while we were there, I caught the very tail end of his message, and it was all about igniting the passion for missions. And he played a song, I Surrender All. And I just felt like I was sitting there, I just started weeping. And the Holy Spirit was like, okay, I got you here. I want you coming back. And I remember and I couldn't even express it to my teammates because it was just so marking because I was just like pretty overwhelmed
Uh,
knowing that
yeah.
after that week of like what I experienced and like, I'm coming, this is where you want me to come back. And it was just that day was just amazing, getting to spend the time with my team and the students. They even had a birthday cake for me. But the next day, as I had some time to reflect and just praying, like, what would I do? I mean, the clinic on the campus was more than like a Band Aid station. They had it was very small, very limited. It was staffed by a nurse practitioner who was Nigerian. And, I just thought, "What would I really do as an ICU nurse?" And I'd never, ever wanted to go back to school to be a nurse practitioner. I even had other doctors that I worked with, they're like, "Oh, come go get your NP and come work with me in a doctor's office." I was like, "I'm never working at a doctor's office. I like the ICU. I like the
Yeah.
ventilators and the drips." I
Yeah.
loved that was my world. And it was like at that moment, it's like God said, "But, a nurse practitioner could really help more because,
Mm.
to see the patients." And so when I got back from the trip, I remember my mom asked me, she's like, "You're gonna go back, aren't you?" I was like, "How did you know?" Because, I mean, you gotta think 2007, we did have email, but it was very limited. The internet was very limited. We only would send out 1 email, like, every few days just to our family and friends for the whole team. So I hadn't talked to my family the whole time.
Right.
And she said, I've just been praying for you, Jen, and I just had this feeling." And I said, "Well, yes, I'm going to Africa, but I need to go back to school first." And so that began a 7-year journey for me. And it's like earlier that year, I'd felt like a stirring in my soul. Like I didn't know it at the time that God was preparing me to move. I actually resigned my job and was going to move as a travel nurse to New York City because I was tired of living in a small town and just wanted to see the world and as a travel nurse. But it's like door after door was shut. And I'm like, they always
Isn't it
need
amazing how
ICU.
God does that?
I
I
know.
mean,
And then it's like, I'm like, they always need nurses. They want to send me like to Buffalo. I'm like, no, I want to go to New York City and or like, Manhattan or the Bronx or Brooklyn. And this is like every job that they offered just wasn't the right fit. And so I never went. And then a few months later, I go on this missions trip and then I see why. And so but then it's just like all the doors started opening. I immediately, the very next year, got into a nurse practitioner program where they only take 15 students. I was
wow.
one of those 15. And so I managed to pay off massive amounts of debt and working. And then I even had a job to work in a doctor's office as one of the doctors I worked with in the intensive care unit upon graduation, even before I graduated. And so God opened that opportunity. I came on with the mission that I'm with World Gospel Mission, and they wasn't even in Nigeria. And they decided to take me as like a special assignment. And so joined on with WGM. And then in the meantime, I'm, raising support, working. I worked 3.5 years in internal medicine because I needed practice experience as a nurse practitioner. So I managed a lot of high blood pressure, diabetes. And then in 2014, I said goodbye to my family and I moved over to Lagos, Nigeria to work and staff the clinic there. And it's just neat
So
how God prepares you for things because I managed a lot of diabetes and a lot of high blood pressure over there.
so
And so
you went from being an ICU nurse to doing something that you didn't wanna do. It sounds like absolutely didn't wanna do and being a nurse practitioner. You had way other plans,
yeah.
and yet God changed all that for you.
Yeah, and he kinda changed my desires. It's like a place like, I never wanted to go to Africa. I mean, it's just like I said, it's hot. I'm very hot-natured. In Lagos, Nigeria, I was like, I don't think my hair was ever dry the whole 2 years I lived there because it just I sweat so much because it's just hot and the power and everything, but and I told my pastor this later. I said, "You know, I started going to my church to find a husband, but what I found was my purpose and what God put me on this
Mm,
earth to do instead." So, I'm
yeah.
still single, still haven't found the husband, but you know what? I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing
Well,
that.
God's
And
got
I
a plan.
served yeah, and it was cool because there was another missionary that went so there were 2 of us. She ran the academic side, and I ran the clinic, and, we served for 2 years, and God opened the door to go to Kenya, for the WGM field retreat because we were only a team of 2 and because of security restrictions and things in Nigeria, there really was not a place for us to go on retreat. So the Kenya field graciously offered us to come to Kenya, and I got to meet my future colleagues. I met Robin Moore, I met April Hirschberger, and just really connected with them and just like, "Oh, wow, this is really cool." Because Robin was working in Nairobi, Kenya with a ministry called The Least of These, to orphans, to vulnerable children, children with special needs. And she was like, I really need another nurse practitioner to come and join me. And she said, what do you think? I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm mostly done adults. I mean, I have, I've seen some kids and I saw even some children in Nigeria, but I just didn't feel at that time that God was releasing me from Nigeria. And so that year, I went home in 2016 after being gone for 2 years and was preparing to go back, and God just clearly opened the doors and just confirmed that He did want me to move to Kenya. And so in 2017, I moved to Kenya and joined the team of Least of These and started working there with orphans, kids with special needs, and children with HIV. And I realized that, and my dad even pointed this out. He said, "Jenny, that's something you've always wanted to do." And I really didn't get to do that in Nigeria. And it's like that promise that God told me all those years before that these will be your children, that they're now my children. Because we serve about 500 kids all around Nairobi where we go, we're all in the community. We go do primary medical care to them. So we help with food, like good nutrition, supplement, like with like peanut butter, porridge, fruit, milk, eggs, and then we also, of course, do medical care. We go to the kids. So we go to their school, to the children's home, or what we would think of like an orphanage, infant rescue centers. There's 10 different locations that we partner with to do primary medical care and then nutrition. And then we also have some students that we sponsor for school, for high school, or we have a couple college students that we help pay their school fees. One's in nursing school.
Wow. Wow.
Two, actually, two's in nursing school.
How long did it take you to get through nurse practitioner school?
2 years, it's 6 semesters, so I started in the summer, so summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring. So I graduated in 2010 and then started working. I joined WGM in 2011 and then still working to raise support and everything because 'cause I'm fully donor funded, and then moved over to Nigeria in 2014, then moved to Kenya in 2017, and I've been in Kenya since, and I feel like this is working in Kenya, working with these children, getting to love on them and let them know how much they matter. They matter to me, they matter to God, they matter. A lot of
Yeah.
times they've been thrown away by their families. A lot of them's been very abused, but we can love on them and tell them how much God cares and loves for them. And they have a heavenly Father who loves them. They have Jesus, and just getting to do that is just this is my heart. And I've now been blessed to do this since 2017, and I feel like I'll do it until I retire. Because I remember way back on that missions trip, and I remember asking my pastor and just kind of feeling very overwhelmed about, "What do I do, when I'm in Nigeria? Does this mean I have to come?" And I'll never forget, I asked him, I said, "Does this mean I have to come forever?" And he laughed. And he said, "Think of it this way, Jennifer, you will do this until God calls you to do something else." And I thought I would have been in Nigeria longer than 2 years, but God moved me to Kenya, and that's what I tell people. I will be in Kenya until God calls me to do something else or calls me
You've
home.
been there since 2017.
That's 2017,
So
yes.
you rode out COVID
I
in
did,
Kenya. How
I
was
did.
that?
That was interesting. Everything, just like in the US, shut down, and so, like, trying to, like, our churches went all online, but what kept me sane because of being isolated was every Sunday, Robin Moore, my colleague, would come over to either to my apartment because it was bigger, we could spread out more, and then we had a girl from Burundi and another lady from Nigeria who were in Kenya studying, who lived in our same complex, and so we would meet for church every Sunday, and so we would also do a meal. So we took turns, we'd watch our church in Kenya, and then we would alternate watching my church in Georgia or Robin's church in Indiana, and so we actually got 2 church services, and then we'd have a meal together, and that really helped keep me from being isolated and just feeling alone because we even tried to we still did our clinics with our kids, but we tried to space them out a couple weeks, so we were making sure we wasn't taking anything, like if we were to get sick, and I wrote all of COVID out the whole 2 years in Kenya and never got COVID until I came home in 2022 and I got it. I had been home less than a week and I get COVID.
No kidding. No kidding. What does that say? Let me ask you this. You mentioned something that's near and dear to my heart. During COVID, we started transmitting our services over the internet also. And I have been amazed at the reach that we've been able to go to through the internet and how many people actually watch our service who have not ever entered into this sanctuary. And, you saying that just really makes me happy.
Yeah, because I know that really having that, because even though we were still trying to, distance and be wise and everything, because I mean, Nairobi, they shut it down, and it's neat how God used that not only to, like, get people to put the services online, and I remember hearing the pastors telling about it was so strange to preach to an empty church, but this the reach that they had, but it also birthed new ministries because in Nairobi, they, like, literally, I think they gave it was like a day or 2, less than a day or 2, and shut the city down, and, like, you couldn't travel outside the lawn, outside, like, the certain boundaries. Luckily, all of the places that we partner with were all within our circle, so we could still go to all of our ministry sites.
So you
But
were still
people
doing medicine.
yeah, we were still doing medicine, still seeing kids, and then Robin and I we only live our apartments are only 3 kilometers apart, so, like, a mile and a half.
Mhm.
And so when I would be driving over to her house, we would see these ladies sitting on the side of the road on this one street, and they were kinda like day laborers, so it's like you could hire them for the day as a cook, a nanny, yard work, whatever, and as COVID was going on, and as it was kinda getting in later in the year, we start seeing these numbers. I mean, first there might be 10, 15 people, but then there was like 20, 30. So many women, and people were scared. They were scared to bring strangers into their homes.
Yeah.
Many people lost their jobs and they didn't have money. I mean, people in Nairobi were so hungry and literally starving. And so we felt like God just kind of impressed on us to make up some food bags. And so we did that with just like some food staples. We put in some Bible verses, and there just says like hello. It's like Jumbo Dada, Dada is sister. It's like hello, sister. God sees you. He knows your needs, and put some verses in there. And we even got like our college students, those 2 students, to help us pack the bags. And then we referred them to our church if they needed any further help. And that day we made up, I think, 120 something bags. We gave out 100. They were gone within like 15 minutes. I mean, people were
Wow.
so excited to see this food and then we had soap, we put masks in there. I'm trying to, we put some other essentials.
Yeah.
And then one of our volunteers, who is just a dear friend, her name is Maggie, we sent some bags home with her, and I look back at seeing at God's timing because Maggie used to live in a very bad area. She wouldn't have been able to if she hadn't have moved. She had just moved, like, a few months before COVID, like, I think COVID hit, what, February, March? She had just moved that 1st of the year to another more secure house that actually had a gate and had a guard. And so we gave her like 10 bags to take home because we're like, you'll see people that we won't see and meet. And it's just God used that to start a whole new ministry. I joked, I told her it was Maggie's Market Ministry because she would go to the market, just the little shops to buy her tomatoes or whatever. And she would hear these women talking, like, what are we going to do? We have no
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
I went all the way to Kibera and there, where they heard they were giving food out, there was none, or we waited all day at the chief's office and we've been here 8 hours and there's nothing. And
Wow.
so she would go up to him and say, they were speaking all in Swahili and Maggie's Kenyan. would go up to him and say, "I know someone who has food." So she brought them to her house and gave them food, and one of the ladies, she said when she gave her one of the food bags, she literally dropped on her knees, started just crying and weeping, just thanking God, because she said, "I know you said you had food, but I didn't believe it."
Mhm.
And one of the ladies was she got connected with it, that was even thinking about committing suicide. Husband had left, took off. She had 3 kids, had no money, no food, and she was solo. Maggie, even in the height of COVID, brought her into her house, her apartment, sat down and went over a Bible study with her about, like, walking with God through crisis. It's like our local church in Kenya had just put these Bible studies out, and so she went through the first lesson with her and gave her food, and that got her even connected with some mental health, professionals, and it's just this grew, and so, like, every week, these ladies would come, and Maggie they ended up forming a group because then she said, they would sit outside and kinda space around, and she's like, "Well, tell me your story," and
Mm.
they're like, "You wanna hear my story?"
Yeah.
And so they started meeting. This group is still in existence today. They pull their resources, they help each other. They never even met the foreigner, they only saw their Kenyan sister, and I
Wow.
got to finally meet her group, I think it was last year for the first time, and it was just so neat to finally meet this group that's been meeting since 2020, and they've now started another group in another area, and we buy our peanut butter from them. One of the ladies who we would buy our peanut butter was from Rwanda, and she joined their group and, showed them how to process the peanut butter. They were able to get funds together to buy the machine that would grind the peanuts. So they grind the peanuts. It's just peanuts, oil, and salt, and it's all natural. We buy it and we give it out to our children in the homes
That's awesome.
for extra nutrition. And then now the group in the village that started through growing the peanuts. So the plan is hopefully in the future that the village group will grow the peanuts. They will sell the peanuts to the Nairobi group. The Nairobi then group processes them, and then we buy the final product. And it's
Isn't
just
that
cool
something?
how
That is
that
neat.
is it. And now Maggie is a missionary with WGM. She joined our
Really?
mission, and she's one of our missionaries now. She's what they call a regionally mobilized global worker because she's got mobilized in Kenya, and so she's now with our organization, which is just amazing. She's even in work. She's finishing up her degree in mental health counseling because she sees such the benefit of working with women and meeting them when they need, and so many are just in despair and need professional counseling, and so she's going to be a counselor to work
That's
with these
great.
women, and she's still running these groups that she
That's
does, and
awesome.
she's even now has groups in Burundi that she helped get going, and so she's amazing.
Jennifer, how are they now in regards after COVID? Are they you still seeing a lot of unemployment? You still seeing those 30 women on the side of the road? What's it like now?
Not as bad, I mean, since, things are picked back even after once they lifted the lockdown, and they locked us down a couple different times, during the COVID time, because they even stopped international flights, which tourism is a big industry in
I'm
Kenya.
sure, yeah.
They, rely heavily because we've got beautiful animals, beautiful
Yeah,
people, Kenya's a beautiful country, and so it has gotten better. I know Maggie's group continues to meet, but then now they've moved from, like, general just relief work, providing the food, to now looking at development and how can they do, like, more sustainable development working together, like, with this peanut butter business. The group in the village grows, like, beans, like black beans, and so we buy those to provide, beans for our kids
okay.
and stuff. So it has gotten better, but unemployment is still very high. Like, even some of the young like, one girl that comes to mind, she came out of a girls' rescue center, got a college degree, and has been looking for 3 years trying to find a job. And so one of the things, least of these, we've really noticed is God has brought in kind of almost a new ministry. I'm working with college students and mentoring them, and we see just the need for that. And so she has been partnering with one of our rescue centers. And so least of these, we're covering her expenses, but then she's working there, volunteering there, and it's just really been life changing. We've done it with now 3 college students. And then so they're getting discipled. They're not just sitting around with nothing to do. They're working very hard and they're getting to take care of kids where they were in that same situation and give back. They said it's just been so remarkable and marking. And now it looks like this one young lady, we're partnering, hoping to partner with another group. It's called UDM, University Discipleship Movement. And that's what they do. They work with college students. And it's a Kenyan man and woman who's also with WGM. They're working in Uganda, and they have this ministry there, and so we connected them with this student, or she's not a student anymore, she's graduated, but it looks like she's gonna be going to Uganda within this next month to work with college students as a mentor, and, they also do, like, some training and, like, maybe, like, coffee shop, like, barista that's been real up and coming now with coffee and Kenya even getting the specialty coffees and stuff, so trying to, again, do employment discipleship, and so it's just neat how something that we just recognize we never knew how God could take and just,
Right.
this ministry to our college students.
God is amazing and can
Yes,
do all
totally.
things. When you really stop and look at what God does, it is absolutely fabulous. Let me switch topics real quick, not completely, but just different direction. You said that you are completely 100% donor funded. Tell us what that means.
So I do not take a salary from Kenya. I work with orphans, kids with special needs. So all the money that I need to sustain, I have to raise support, usually for most people from people in the United States. We do have some friends that we've met in the Netherlands who have a ministry in Kenya and they support the least of these. So we raise all the money that, like, even my salary for my health insurance, my travel expenses, gas for my car. I have a vehicle in Kenya. It's owned by WGM, but I operate it. And so things like that we raise support for. And then also our ministry, least of these, all the money that we spend every month for food, for medicine, for the medical care, even like eyeglasses, cardiology visits, all of that comes from our generous donors who partner with us. And so I'm
Wow.
currently in the US right now doing what we call HMA. It means Homeland Ministry Assignment because WGM, or my mission, World Gospel Mission, says, even when you're home, you're still doing ministry. The ministry doesn't stop just when you leave my country that I'm currently working in. And so I've been in the US since the end of May and I will go back to Kenya in January. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm traveling around speaking. I'm currently in Virginia right now visiting with supporters and one of my supporting churches. And so that's and telling them about Lisa these, telling them about the work we're doing, showing them what money that they're donating and they're giving and partnering with us, what it's doing and what we've been able to do, and some stories of our kids that God has brought into our past that we've been able to help and, hopefully change nothing but we've done. It's only through God, but then what we've been able to do and partner with them. So everything that we do, and that's why we've tried to explain to our Kenyan partners that we work with, we're like, there's not an unending pot of money. This money is all that people in the US that they love and care or, other countries who partner with us to provide like the glasses or like sometimes chicken is such a special meal. They don't usually get chicken because it's more expensive. And when you have even 30, 40, or 100, the biggest home that we partner with has like 125 children. You can't afford to buy fried chicken and chips, they call it,
Right.
which is French fries for those. But we have generous donors who will, offset the costs of that and cover those so we can do it, especially at Christmas, give them a special meal and just let them know
Wow.
that people love them, they care about them.
How it and I hope I'm not getting too personal, but how much do you have to raise, say, per month or per year to fund this ministry that you're doing, including your salary, including your living expenses? What type of amount are we looking at?
Like, for me, my personal budget, I have to raise about $5,200 a month in monthly support that goes
Wow.
to cover all the expenses that I have, my phone, even my internet, everything that I have to cover, and also to, like, for my vehicle expenses, my rent, I have to do that, and then lease of these, we spend our average budget's around $4 to $5,000 a month in food, and a lot of that we get from one-time donations is a lot, especially at Christmas time. We recently, just wrote a grant and was able to get some money to cover because one thing we've noticed is our fund has gone down. It's just because cost has gone up. We're spending a lot more on seizure medicines. We help provide good quality medicines, and a lot of our kids, especially those with special needs, have seizures. We looked it up, averaged about almost $700 a month just for seizure medicines and stomach medicines because we have a couple kids that had some pretty severe, ulcers and bleeding, and they have to be, like, on a special like, on Nexium, which to get the granules. I've even checked in the US, but it's actually we get it cheaper in Kenya, but it's like $50 a month. But
Wow.
in the US, it would be several $100s a month, but
Yeah.
that's what they need. And so we were able to write this grant that will cover the medicine for a whole year, for this just for those 2 medicines. So that's
That's
in
awesome.
addition to, yeah, so we rely a lot, I know, on the end of the year giving and stuff, and then we do have some partners that partner with Lisa These Monthly to help cover all the needs. Because, like, my colleague, this is actually the first year, because Robin Moore, who was as a pediatric nurse practitioner, she retired,
Right.
and we ever since I came to Kenya, we've always been on opposite what we do here in the US. But this is the first year that there's not been a nurse practitioner in Kenya full time. We have some great volunteers who help, and they've been helping while I've been gone. And then we have Rebecca Fielding. She's an occupational therapist who's a part of our ministry. She's been doing all the coordinating all the medical visits,
Mm.
the food delivery. She's been doing all of that while I'm gone, but as far as taking medical calls, she just cannot do that. So
She can't
I've
do
had
that. Yeah.
but she's amazing and done so much. And so Becca's been with us since I think since 2022. Yeah, she came and
So,
joined our ministry.
and I'm horrible in math. Let's go ahead and put that out there. But it sounds like you and your team have to raise seven to $10,000 a month.
Yeah, that's probably a fair, yeah, estimate.
That's a lot of money considering that you also have a full-time job and taking care of people, you know. What can we do to help out? How can somebody listening to this that says, "I wanna help out Jennifer," or, "I wanna help out the least of these." How do they go about doing that?
Well, I can send you a QR code, or I can give just the website. You can go online and go to WGM and donate to the least of these. I've been very blessed since I've been doing this now for 11 years that I have a really strong support team. I've had some people that have been with me this whole time that I've been overseas and still continue every month to faithfully support me. So my funding is doing good. I'm very blessed. So what I've been focusing this time is just trying to raise for least of these because it's a ministry, but it's a project under WGM. So WGM is kind of like the umbrella, our mission organization, and under that is, of course, me as one of their missionaries. But then is the project of Least of These, which is the ministry to orphans and vulnerable children there in Nairobi. And so I can share with you the website. It's just
Yes.
WGM dot I think slash project least of these. You could search it and find it. And we also have
Okay.
a Facebook page. And so I know at the end of the year we post some things about, if you want to sponsor a child for school, or if you want to provide eggs for a month or milk or fruit, we spend about $200 a month on fruit to give out to our children every month. We've had some,
How much does it cost to sponsor a child to go to school?
I'm trying to remember.
Just
I'd have to
ballpark.
get probably about forget how much. Becca just worked on all this stuff, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I mean, maybe $1,200 a year. That's more no, that would be more for university, and that
Okay.
includes, like, their rent. I mean, that includes, um their school fees, uniforms, books, all that stuff. So it's a lot cheaper in Kenya than it would be, even in the US. And I think our high school students, like we have one girl who's legally blind, and so she goes to a special school for visually impaired kids. I think hers is about six to $700 a year for her school
Okay.
fees. Because in Kenya, there's no free education. Everyone has to pay school fees and has uniforms and stuff. So even, little kids from primary school or kindergarten all the way through high school, they have school fees. There's very few public or free schools. Most I've not none of our kids go to those. Almost all the kids I know go to and have some form of like some school fees they have to pay.
Do you have a lot of need for school fees and stuff like that?
Yes, we do. I mean, we have some students who, do have sponsors. Like one of our students, we had him all the way through high school and he just started college and he's going now to get a diploma in public health. And so that he wants to do something in the public health field. And so we were able to find a sponsor. And so she's covering all of his expenses, even was able to get a computer because one thing I was surprised, when I was in school, I didn't have a computer. I mean, of course, I was in college a long time ago, but, there were computer labs at the school that I was able to go and use the computers provided by the college. Well, there is no computer labs at most of the schools that our students attend. So they have to do their work on like a smartphone or like borrow somebody's computer. So that's been a real need. We had partnered with another ministry that had like gently used computers that people would donate. And then we would get them over there. But we were able to buy a good computer for like 3 or 400, maybe it was like $500, I think, an HP computer for the student that, he did have a sponsor. So he's blessed and he does have a computer, but several of our students, they don't. They're just on, trying to use other students' computers. But we have one nursing student who they actually have a computer lab that she can use at the school she's at. But then I think her second, because she's in her first year, her second year, she will need a personal one, and so that's why we've talked to some of the sponsors about maybe getting her a computer.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. We're coming up and on our time limit there, Jennifer. What else would you like to bring forth to don't forget that you're coming to Flint Hill
Yes,
November the
I'm
2nd.
excited.
You'll be here speaking and raising funds, and we're looking so forward to that. So if you're in the Alexander City area or you'd like to drive to Alexander City to meet Jennifer and to hear what she has to say at Flint Hill, our services start at 10:45, and we'd love to have you. Please come. And I want to talk to you offline, Jennifer, because we have a school, and that school is going to be moving here to Flint Hill next year, hopefully, God be willing, and we can get a building permit to build the building. But I'd like to talk to you about maybe how we can do some partnerships with you and helping somebody go to school. So let's talk offline about that.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to bring forth to the people who are listening here today?
I appreciate the support, the prayers. I mean, I know there's been times that I knew people were praying. It can, even as missionaries, it can be sometimes discouraging. You see so much need and just so much heartbreak. But then, I see then somebody will send me a message saying, "Hey, you were on my mind today. I've been praying for you." And I know that was smiles that God has given me, that even in the midst sometimes of despair and some really hard situations that, he's there with me. And, we all need those reminders. I'm not anything special. I just said yes, and I happen to be working overseas. We all have our unique areas that God has called us to be and to be a light for others to Him, and just to share His love with the world. And so I would appreciate some prayers, or like what I mentioned about not having a nurse practitioner there full time to cover. The volunteer that has really been so helpful in helping us is actually moving back to the US next year. So we will be really again short. And so we really need another nurse practitioner to join our team. We've been looking here. I'll be going to Global Missions Conference in Louisville, Kentucky in December. I'll be going to Urbana and Phoenix in December. I mean, Global Missions in November, Urbana in December. And so I've been, sharing that the need, but just people's prayers is great, because that's one thing we've been really, looking forward more people, because we're a team of three right now. Myself, Becca, and then April. April's a teacher who lives and works. She's the assistant director of one of the baby centers about 4 hours outside Nairobi. And she has a heart and a passion for kids with special needs. So that is our team of three. So we need lots of prayer to keep everything
Yeah,
going, that I don't wanna let the just I guess, the overwhelming sometimes it can feel very overwhelming. I
right.
don't want that to stop me from just showing these kids how much I love them and how much God loves them. And so He provides, He sends teams. We've hosted medical teams, and we've hosted, college students to come and help out, and that's also been a big encouragement too, and just knowing that people love us and pray for us.
Do you have an email that you give out?
Yes, it's Jennifer, so Jennifer dot Bennett, Bennett, at wgm.org. So
So if
Jennifer
anybody
dot Bennett at wgm.org.
so if anybody wanted to write a letter of encouragement or just a prayer, or
Yes,
just a note to say hi to you, that
exactly.
they can do so.
Or I mean, email or WhatsApp. I mean, over there in Kenya or Africa, everybody uses WhatsApp. It's not as big here in the US, but I have a WhatsApp number. It's +254 734 34. You can send me a message. It's free. That's how I video chat and keep up with some of our students while I'm here. I've been messaging with one of our college students even this morning. And so send a message and just let her know. She sent up me her grades and she did amazing, got all A's, 1B. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. She's going to be a
Wow,
counselor. And we're
that's
hoping that
awesome.
she'll join our team to B, when she graduates, to come join Lisa these as a full-time counselor so we can again meet another need that a lot of our kids have as, needing mental health counseling.
I'm sure. My son actually has, he wants to go into nursing and wants to be a mental health nurse. Maybe that's somebody that we may see one day God put a call on. We'll see.
Hey, you never know.
Never know. You never know. Jennifer, I appreciate what you do so much. Appreciate your service to God, and I appreciate the time that you have spent with us here today. And we'll get this out, and we will be broadcasting it on Apple Podcasts. It'll be on Spotify, and we'll put it on YouTube. And I'll send you these links that it can go to. That way you can help spread it and show it when you're out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on November the 2nd. And please be safe in your travels. Can I say a prayer for you before we leave?
Yes, please.
God in heaven, I thank you for Jennifer, and I thank you for all those who have received your call to go overseas or to be there on the ground and be working with the people like she is doing, Lord. She has such a heart and such a devotion to your work, and we give you all the praise and the glory. We ask that you keep her safe. We ask that you touch the hearts of those who are here in America so that we can continue to help fund her and fund those ministries and provide those services for the people and for the children. And we give you all the praise and the honor and the glory. In Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hello, this is Pastor John. And if this show is touching your life in some way that is bringing you closer to God, hit that subscribe button or hit that like button. We certainly would appreciate it. Hey, this is Pastor John, and I want to personally thank you for joining us today for Grounded. If this has touched your life in any way, I'd love to hear about it. You can contact me through my email, which is chaplainjhill@gmail.com, or you can even call Flint Hill Church at 256-234-5047, and always remember the door at Flint Hill is open for you. We worship at 1045 on Sunday mornings.